problems persist into adolescence, where the negative outcomes are even more pronounced, as children from poor households show a greater likelihood to drop out of school, become pregnant, and engage in crime than those from more privileged economic backgrounds. Linked to poverty to varying degrees, the prevalence of inadequate early caregiving environments within Caribbean families and their developmental sequence raise concerns as well. In both national and small-scale samples, high rates of developmental delays and youth violence have been recorded in Jamaican children, and severe physical punishment has been determined as a predominant method of addressing childhood transgression in Jamaican, Barbadian, Dominican, Haitian, and indeed many other Caribbean families. Across several Caribbean communities, low-income parents rarely display affection towards children or engage in more democratically oriented two-way verbal exchanges, though these practices are changing. The psychological and educational costs to children of harsher forms of discipline that are void of explanations are spelled out in detail in many authoritative reviews. Independently conducted situational analyses singled out improving the care environment within families as the antidote to early developmental delays of children from impoverished backgrounds who may experience unstable parental conjugal living arrangements. These analyses underline the prevention route as a viable means of counteracting the deleterious effects of poor or inadequate care environments and recommended improving parenting skills as the best solution for reducing the consequences of early and a bad early home environment on children's development. In view of the sizable number of Caribbean children of young mothers living in poverty, data-based analyses of inadequate and inappropriate parenting practices in poor families and their negative consequences on childhood development, the scope for intervention work on the care environment in Caribbean families take on added meaning and urgency. Intervention work is especially compelling considering the gap in early childhood services offered to families during the critical 0 to 3 years, when children acquire so much of the basic cognitive and social skills necessary for later schooling, the focus on family resilience, and the need to take intervention services to scale in several Caribbean countries. The Caribbean Child Support Initiative was established in 2002 by the Bernard Van Leer Foundation to address issues relevant to poor parenting practices and inadequate cognitive stimulation of young children, particularly in the 0 to 3 cohort, living under difficult social and economic circumstances. From inception, the CCSI sought to adopt a culturally contextualized, resilient, adaptive framework that is embedded in a child's rights perspective to address inappropriate child-rearing practices with the hope of ameliorating cognitive and social deficits in young children across the Caribbean. At the societal and community levels, the CCSI advances its learning and institutional agenda by sponsoring research seminars, providing research data on the efficacy of family intervention practices, supporting the development of learning communities, and embracing policy initiatives that promote the individual needs and rights of families and children. CCSI's mission and principles, therefore, coincide with those of the Caribbean Plan of Action and the Child's Rights Perspective. By narrowing the emphasis on the care environment as a primary target for intervention, CCSI focused on the child rearing and socialization processes within the family and adjacent institutions that nurture the social and intellectual skills of children. Ultimately, the goal was and still is to improve the life chances of young children through appropriate parenting practices, parental attunement to the child's developmental needs, sensitive caregiving practices that are characterized by warmth, by promptness of response, a good working knowledge of childhood development, and heightened parent-child cognitive stimulation activities. The Roving Caregivers Program, which started in Jamaica with ECD pioneer Joyce Jarrett, is an informal early childhood education program that seeks to reach children birth to 3 years of age who do not have access to any formal early childhood education. Early stimulation for the children and parenting education for the parents form the core of the program. These caregivers work with home communities, making regular visits with children in the target group. During home visits, caregivers involve children in play activities that support their development of motor, perceptual, emotional, and cognitive skills, and they offer to parents tips about how best to promote children's health, hygiene, and safety. These home visitations are supported by regular parent education workshops where parents are introduced to parenting knowledge and skills. Through the instrumentality of CCSI and with a growing network of institutional collaborators, the RCP was replicated in Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and subsequently in Belize. Over the past several years, CCSI has been instrumental in introducing and helping to anchor the program, as it has proven to fill a major void in areas where there are no other similar services available. Furthermore, given that it provides for early stimulation of children in their critical years of development, the RCP provides opportunities that are often missed or erased among those most at risk. Because no single program in isolation can overcome the multiple challenges facing high-risk families, to be effective, home visitation programs must have strong connections to a full system of family-strengthening supports, including other child and youth services in the communities. And there are several programs that this project has helped to launch, like the Caribbean Internship Program, the Learning Community Program, the Family Learning Program. Given the overlap in underlying determinants, it makes sense that government should be building on established child survival and health programs to make home visitation and other ECD programs accessible through existing platforms. The healthcare system is often the most cost-effective and most universal point of contact. Based on the feasibility study conducted in 2007, it was felt that given the well-organized healthcare services and the interest in the integration of services for children, St. Vincent and the Grenadines would be the best candidate for a small-scale maternal infant-child health pilot with support from CCSI and the Bernard Van Leer Foundation. As a result, in June 2010, with the support of UNICEF and PAHO, the Early Childhood Health Outreach Program, ECHO, was launched. The goal of ECHO is to build on the existing healthcare services to deliver an integrated intervention to improve the health and development and child development of disadvantaged families. Sustaining the RCP and ECHO-type services introduced, however, should not be seen as an end in itself, but rather as important vehicles to go into policy, advocacy, and financing. Despite the compelling social and economic research showing that well-focused investments in ECD can yield high and sustained returns for both the public and private sector, it has fallen short on the pecking order for social and economic developmental initiatives. Recognizing the current lack of a sufficiently responsive and holistic policy environment, CCSI will now transition to an institutional entity, a regional private foundation, the Foundation for the Development of Caribbean Children. While acknowledging and highlighting the government's role and responsibility to provide